Another thing that I love to ask people is, what did you think that you would be doing when you were in high school? How many people here in high school knew that they were going to be in dentistry? I knew it was going to be a lot. I feel like dentists, for some reason, just know that that's what they're going to do. But there were people that didn't raise their hands. So the cool thing is we have a lot of people here who knew. They have a story of why they wanted to become a dentist. And then we have half of the room that thought they were going to be something else and somehow ended up becoming dentists. So there's a catalyst that put them on that path. And for the rest of you, there's something that kept you on that path. Right? So we can think about our career in that way as well. So what I want to do again is have you break out into new pairs, not with the person you just talked with, and just discuss your career, your industry, your education into your occupation, what that has looked like. I'll put 5 more minutes on the clock, and I will see you soon. We're going to do the arm thing at the end. We're going to entertainment is where we're going once I get my thing here working. But entertainment is kind of like our personality, right? So how many people here watch Bob Ross? Yeah, Bob Ross. Yeah. A lot of nostalgia just came up in the room. I used to watch Bob Ross in college to fall asleep at night. I feel like he was the original ASMR. But if you remember, he would do his paintings, and then at the end, he'd be like, we're going to put a happy little tree over here. We're going to put a nice little deer over here. And to me, that is the entertainment side of people's stories. It's what gives you personality. The issue with entertainment is if I come into you with a conversation, I say, hey, what are your hobbies? Probably you're going to become paralyzed by that question and think, oh God, I have to tell Rob something super interesting, like I just ran an ultramarathon last week, or I'm doing some carpentry this weekend. It's not the case. With entertainment, we're not asking what makes you interesting, which I think a lot of people feel like they have to do. It's just, what are you interested in? So I think a better way to think about this question is, what are the routine things that you do outside of work? It could be watching Jeopardy. It could be going to church. It could be anything. Just what are the routine things that you do outside of work? And another thing is, how are you entertaining yourself? So what are you watching? What are you reading? What are you listening to? Right now, for example, I'm watching Jury Duty, which is a great show. I recommend it. I'm reading Infinite Game by Simon Sinek. I listen to everyone from Frank Sinatra and Frankie Valli, The Four Seasons, to Dr. Dre and Eminem, to Jack Johnson and John Mayer. So in 10 seconds there, you have a better idea of my interests outside of just being the guy in a suit talking about connection, right? And some of you may have thought, I watched that show as well, or I like that artist as well. And you can see there are points in which we can connect with each other already. The key with this category is specifics will move a conversation forward. Generalizations will kill it. If I say, hey, what kind of music are you into? And you say, hey, well, I like everything except for country. Some of these people are like, that's a crime. That should not be said. But you can't really go anywhere with that information, right? You have to ask another question. But if you say, like, I like Garth Brooks, then, oh, okay, cool. Now I can ask about favorite songs, if you've ever seen them in concert, how you became a fan. So specifics will move the conversation forward. Another thing here is my favorite question in thinking about entertainment is this one. If there's one question that you remember and that you want to talk to your patients, to legislators about, I think this is the most powerful one. And every time I ask people this in my conversations with them, they always sit back and go, oh, that's such a good question. The question is, if you think about your identity as a pie chart, what would be the breakdown of categories of how you define yourself, right? How many people here, dentistry is 100% of your identity? No, okay, right? So for everyone in this room, at an event like this, it might be really easy to talk dentistry the whole time. But what we do with a question like this is we say, I understand dentistry is just a slice of who you are, and I understand that there are other slices that make up who you are as well. There's 2 things that this question does, and the first is it gives context to the person you're talking to. So if they say dentistry is actually 30% of who I am, you say, okay, that means there's 70% more of you that I can get to know in this conversation. If dentistry is 60%, okay, it's the majority of your identity, but there's still 40% of who you are outside of that. The second thing is this question helps you see people as they see themselves. And I think that's one of the greatest gifts we can give to one another. I write about people after I meet with them, and one of my favorite things is when I see them say, oh, this was such a great, accurate description of who I am. Or when one of their friends comments and says, this is great, this is exactly the type of person that I know. It helps you truly see people. We're going to go into needs and dreams here. And that is just thinking about, okay, if we're thinking about this timeline, everything that we had was from our birthplace up until the present moment. Needs and dreams is the present moment going forward. And what I'd like to do with this category is just kind of bring back all those other categories. So if you're thinking about career, what are your aspirations in your career? Do you probably have your own practice, or if not, do you hope to have it someday? Do you hope to grow it, expand? What does that look like? Beyond your career goals, what kind of legacy do you want to leave? Do you want to make an impact on the dentistry field? Do you want to make an impact outside of that, solve something like gender inequality or world hunger? And beyond that, what's on your bucket list? What are the things that you want to do before you die? What places do you want to see? Sites do you want to see? Foods do you want to try? Personally, I think it would be really cool to hug a penguin before I die. So if we have any zoo connections in the room, just feel free to chat with me afterwards. And then we can talk about our location as well, right? Like, where do you want to be location-wise? Do you want to remain in North Carolina? Do you want to retire to a beach in Mexico? Do you want to end up in London? Where do you want to be location-wise, and why? And then what do you want your family to look like in the future? And again, do you want to have kids? Do you want to have grandkids if you have kids? While recognizing that not everyone wants or has the ability to have kids. So for the last time here, I'm going to break you out into pairs with someone that you don't know to chat about your entertainment and your needs and dreams. The pie chart question, I think, is a really interesting one to chat about. So I'll put 5 minutes on the clock, and I will see you soon. This is the friend framework. If you want to take a picture of it real quick, that will give you, you can put in your email, get a download for the framework and all of the questions that I've used. So the last thing here is just reflections. I think it's really cool to reflect on the people that we meet, because that allows us to lock in the value of what we've learned. Right? The way that I do this is I take a picture with everyone that I meet and I write their story afterwards. And you definitely do not have to do this, right? You don't have to write a story, but think about like your patients if you have a CRM for them. If you ask questions within this friend framework, and then you wrote down those answers and you brought them up the next time they were in. If you kept notes, like a connection journal or something like that, it just allows you to lock in the value. And in a way, it inspires other people to go on their own journeys of connection, or you help increase the sense of belonging in your environment. Now, just by doing my project, my friend Naomi saw it and she said she was experiencing loneliness. So she said, I am going to meet people in Boston one-on-one for 1 hour each. She's since met over 30 people. But it didn't stop there. I had my two friends in Toronto, these two cousins, who said, we're going to meet people during the quarantine. They each met over 100 people. And one of them, this guy Ahmed, his cousin, met his girlfriend. She lives in Fort Lauderdale. He lives in Toronto. They never would have met if it weren't for his project. And the last I spoke to him, he said they're actually moving in together in Montreal. So I texted him and I said, hey man, how did you do this? Because I've been doing this for 7 years and I haven't found a girlfriend yet. So I got to get back to him on that. But it didn't stop there. Went over to my friend Marcel, who did this in Germany, and lastly my friend Tahir in India. And I share this with you not to say, hey, look at me and all the cool things that I've done. I share this with you to say, you all have the power and the potential to create this value in your lives and for the other people around you. When you take a genuine interest in other people's stories, you help the people around you see the value in it. So just think about it. What if you set a connection goal for yourself? What if you use that friend framework to drive your conversations? What if you reflected on your connections, and as a result, what if that inspired others to meet new people? Because remember, every human interaction has the potential to change your life. So I have one final request for you, which is don't let this end here. Today in this room, you were vulnerable with each other. You opened yourselves up. You forged new connections. What if you carried that openness from this room with you out into the world? What if instead of just meeting people, you truly saw them? What would that unlock in you, in them, and in the world? For me, it led to moments that I will never forget. My friend Jack here, he was number 5328. He helped me get my dream vacation. I'm going to India next month because of him. Michelle in the middle here, she was number 2118. She is the reason I became a public speaker, and my friend Dave here, number 5113, found me my current apartment and has been my neighbor for the last year. So who could it be for you, right? And maybe 6,423 will be my future wife. My parents would love that. But who could it be for you, right? If you went out and met new people, what if you decided to commit to meeting people not only when you needed something from them, but just as a routine part of your life? Not for the goals, not for the metrics, but because you are human, right? And then maybe one day, years from now, we could look back on this room, this very room, and see this as the start of something beautiful.